Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining the conversation today. We're excited for both of us to be together, Alana and I, recording once again. Today, we are talking about when recovery is weaponized. So, have you, as a betrayed partner, ever found yourself clinging to hope that your partner is in recovery, hoping that they would finally make things better, only to realize that nothing has really changed? Or maybe they are saying all of the right words, they're going to all of the meetings, they are doing, quote, the work that you hear us talk about so much here on the podcast, but deep down, you know that it still doesn't feel safe. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when recovery gets weaponized. We also want to talk about how that is going to potentially impact you as a betrayed partner. One thing I really just want to highlight here, oftentimes when I see this with my clients, I will tell them this. So I'm going to tell you all, you are not crazy for noticing the disconnect and the confusion here. If this is coming up for you, if you have thought this, if you have wondered this, felt this, you're not crazy. You are also not wrong for feeling like something is off. So we're going to unpack some of this together today around recovery and when it potentially is weaponized.
Can I just say, I am so excited for this episode. Even as we were talking about it this morning, I think we've done this more recently, like in the last 6 months. I don't think we can talk about this enough. If I see one problematic thing consistently, is I see this coming up so often. And this is different than those of you who don't have a partner who's attempting or even attempting to look like they're in recovery. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you are in a relationship with somebody who says, look at me, I'm doing the work. Don't you see all that I've done? Yet you still feel either crazy or super dysregulated. And you're wondering, okay, are they in recovery? Am I the problem? Am I just not seeing it right? I even see this for those who are legitimately trying to do this right, work recovery and not weaponize it. I even see this just as some of the early stages of doing recovery work. I'll see some of this weaponizing.
Mm-hmm.
And so because it happens so often and so frequently, I really want to slow this down, call it out. Today's episode is focused, yes, on you as the partner. But for those who are listening to this, who have acted outside of your values, I want you to hear this too, because if you are doing this and either not aware or doing this because you feel like you need to do it to make your partner see, I also want you to hear the unhealthiness in this so that you can live more value-based and you can move away from this too. So we're talking to partners today who have been injured, but for those of you who happen to be listening, I hope you listen and learn, because this really does not allow healing to happen when the weaponizing is occurring, because weaponizing is a type of injury. And so we really have to address it.
We really do. And as you were talking, I was like, this really comes down to reality versus appearance. And
Yeah.
that confusion is my clients, the betray partners, or what is real. They're looking so desperately for what's real. And the betrayer is oftentimes still trying to give the appearance of or keep an appearance up around something. So we've got reality versus appearance. And I think that's really, it is so confusing. So before we dive in, real recovery is never about what someone says they're doing. It really is about how safe you will feel with them in that consistency over time that you hear us say ad nauseum. It is the consistency over time and the true sense of safety. And we've talked so much about this sense of safety that you feel. Confusion isn't safety. And that's where I know it can be challenging, even as a professional, to hear but they're doing da 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 da, but then that I feel that da 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 da. I'll be honest, I will sometimes even feel a little confused as I'm listening to my betraying partners. But that is always my little red flag for me. If I'm hearing my partner process and I'm feeling confused, that's my signal to hold on, slow down. Then I help her get in her body immediately to find truth. So that's what I'm going to encourage all of you right out of the gate to do. Even in this episode, if you're feeling a little confused, that is your signal sign to slow down, take a step back, and get in your body. Hands down. Alana and I will say this to each other all the time, almost like we still don't believe it, but I know we believe it. But we'll say things like, can you believe the body was right? Like, oh my gosh, it is incredible that you each have a body to listen to and trust and feel that felt sense of safety. So, anyways, there's my little spiel right out of the gate.
You could probably just end the episode right there and just say, listen to that on repeat. Listen to it until it internalizes. And if you don't know how to listen to your body, we have episodes on that. You can work with someone one-on-one on that. But truly, your body is one of the greatest tools you have and one of the least used tools that I see.
Yeah.
Just 100%. And you made me think of when you said reality versus appearance. In our Men's Helper Heal Intensive, we talk about performative empathy versus authentic empathy.
Mhm.
And performative is like, okay, tell me what to say. Like these guys will come to us and they'll say, tell me what to say to my partner. Okay, she says this, like, what do I say to that? And we could give you, and you hear it here on the podcast, right? We could give you word for word what to say. But when that is being said in a performative way versus I am actually feeling the empathy in my own body and I'm coming to you and I am attuning with you through that empathy, that's a very different experience, even if the exact same words are being spoken. And
Mhm.
so as we talk about this and we go into the weaponizing recovery and what it looks like, I want to lay that foundation. Like, yes, reality versus appearance, performative versus actually attuned to you, attuned to themselves and their own healing. And I'll just say, Amie doesn't know this, but we're going to do a part 2, which is what real recovery looks like. So
Okay.
today, let's really go into weaponizing.
Yeah. Okay. No, I like that we'll split it up because the more we're talking off the cuff here, I do see we can focus a little bit more on this because even as you made that example of empathy, performative empathy, one way that I often see that weaponized is, well, I'm saying the words, and in order for them to not really have to do the work and feel and get in touch with their body and their emotions, which might bring up some shame because of their behaviors, if they really let themselves feel empathy, this is another way to get out of the work by just saying the words, checking it off the list and saying, well, I said the thing. But real recovery, real work that you hear us talk about requires the person who injured to slow down in their system, in their body and feel. And that's what I think oftentimes the addict or the one that's struggling with compulsivity behaviors is trying to get out of. They don't want to do that work. And that's why it feels confusing to the betrayed. Well, those words are new. This is sometimes I hear this. Well, he's never said those words before. That feels really good to hear him actually say the words. And yet, how do you feel in your body with those words? That's where I hear still confusion or not quite settled, or still there's just something off. And I'll even see it in their body where their shoulders go up to their ears or the head turns to one side. Something isn't still feeling right about that. You are correct. There's another level that they need to go to, like you were talking about, because it's still performative. They're still not really doing the work. So other ways that I think this gets weaponized or work gets weaponized, recovery gets weaponized, again, going along with the words, we use the right words, like you said, from groups, from therapy, from books, podcasts. I know, Alana, that we've had clients whose partners listen to us and use our words from the podcast against their partners. And so it happens, but even words like well, I'll just never be enough for you. Or look at all that I'm doing. Can't you see what I am doing? Why isn't that getting acknowledged? Or you don't see my progress. Well, my therapist says that I am doing recovery really well, or my therapist or my coach says that I'm right where I need to be. And again, that will create so much confusion. I know as a betrayed partner, I would be like, oh, well, if that person says that, then maybe I am wrong. Maybe I am asking too much. Maybe I'm expecting too much. What is wrong with me? That is the intention, whether it's subconscious or not. The intention is to shift it back onto you as a betrayed partner. That's what I see happen. With
Well, and
words flying out of their mouth. Now the betrayed partner's in that hot seat, having to come up with something.
yeah, and I want to kind of slow each of these down because like that statement, I'll never be enough for you, is a victim statement. That's, I think of the drama triangle. When there's a victim, then they're making a persecutor, right? So now you're in the role of the persecutor because you're not seeing them enough. And now you're doing something wrong versus I have made these decisions and I am feeling very worthless and I'm afraid that I won't move past these or I'm afraid that trust won't be restored, which is me, the person who's acted out, taking accountability versus, like you said, shifting it. You're doing something wrong because you won't see and validate my work.
Mhm.
And as a partner, like I gave you permission to not see and validate their work if you are not in a place to. If you are in a place that you can go, I see this, I validate this, and here's the parts that still feel unsafe to me, that's great. I give you permission to do that. But what gets put so often on the partner, and I hear therapists do this, they'll put this on the partner of like, well, could you just validate him more or her more? And the reason I call that out is when somebody is in this fresh trauma and they are trying to heal their own wounds, they often are not in a place to be healing their own wounds and holding space and offering the validation for their partner. And a lot of times, the person who's been acting out often can become, not all of them, but a lot of them, almost like these validation junkies, where they're looking to other people and other things, hence the acting out, for
Mhm.
that validation. And so I also don't want to keep repeating those patterns. I want to be teaching that person to really learn how to seek that validation for themselves, from themselves, and in healthy ways around them that doesn't include putting that on their partner.
I really am so glad that you just said all of that. 100%. Please go back and rewind and listen to what Alana just said there. That is so important. And I cannot even tell you how many times I see this show up. So I'm really glad that you slowed that down even more. All
Well,
right.
and here's the other thing with partners. When good recovery work is being done, I will hear them say, even with their protector parts, they will say, I do see this and this and this.
Mhm.
Like they will own that. Sometimes it's wise for a partner not to share that relationally just yet.
Yeah.
Other times it is wise for them to share that.
Mhm.
But as they get in their own body and they get those answers, they know when and how to do that relational work.
But if
But
it's being demanded or expected, or you feel pressure to, that
that's where it becomes problematic.
that's problematic. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the same thing with the look at all that I'm doing, or you
Mhm.
don't see my progress, like all of those fall in the same category. My therapist says that one is especially problematic because what they are doing is they are taking somebody else's power in the role of a therapist and they're putting it behind their words to try to convince you.
Mhm.
And that can easily fall within a type of gaslighting. That can be a trying to regain power and control in the situation. That is where the partner doesn't have a way to verify that. And if they do verify that, now they're being forced to go do detective work and talk to the therapist. And now you get the triangulation. And so bringing in, well, my therapist says you should, or my therapist says I'm doing so good, therefore you should. Like
Mhm.
becomes really problematic. As we talk about this, I do see partners do this too. So if you're a partner going, oh no, I do this, this is where I think it can be helpful to have a shared understanding together of what healthy looks like. So sometimes I'll have a couple come to me who are not in a place to do couples work. They're not really in a place where we're doing a lot of relational repair, but they do need the psychoeducation together of this is what recovery looks like. This is the foundation we're laying. Here's a direction that we're going. So we are all aligned on the same page. That can be really important and really beneficial because anytime I hear either of the partners trying to do my therapist says, then I'm hearing we're not listening to each other. We're not on the same page. And one is trying to convince the other of some type of information. And so coming to just that like foundation of understanding can be beneficial.
Which we did an episode on this not too long ago about the when it is ready for couples work versus what you just said right there.
Mhm.
So I'm glad you brought that up because that would definitely be an indicator we need to get on the same page with some language here, but not necessarily couples work. The other way that I see this, the weaponization happen in is the victim. You mentioned this a little bit, but in those statements, but the victim stance, taking that victim stance, which is really portraying that recovery is so hard that like, look at all that I'm doing and I'm doing the group and I'm doing the one-on-one and I'm doing the check-ins with you. So they're naming all the things that they have to do. And I hear it even phrased that way. Well, look at all the things that I'm having to do. And it's so hard. Then here's the shift that you, the betrayed partner, needs to be more understanding and more patient. That I also see get used a lot as well. Now the responsibility is being shifted onto the injured partner. It shifts that focus away from the harm that they caused. It places that burden back on the partner to reassure them. You are doing good. You are doing like what you mentioned before. Now we're back in the role of really feeding the problem, one of, I think, the underlining problems that leads to betraying behaviors. I need validation. I need comfort. I need reassurance. And it is easy. I mean, speaking as a betrayed partner, it's really easy for my personality too to go into that role. When I saw my husband in victim mode, hurting, it looked very real. And I think it was real for him in that victim mentality. So it was easy for me to go into the fixer, comforter, take care of role to make them feel better. And I'll speak for myself. I believe that, well, if I can soften my heart because I can, if I can make him feel better and say the words because I can, it's not hard for me, then what is the harm? And why can't I just make him feel better? Because if I make him feel better, he's not in this desperate, hard place, then maybe he'll pick himself back up and then he'll do the work. And then he'll make everything, better.
We're going to take a really fast break and tell you about some of the things coming up at Choose.
If you've been through betrayal, you know it's more than heartbreak. It can shake your sense of safety, trust, and even your connection to yourself. That's why we created the Courage to Thrive Intensive, a 4-day betrayal trauma intensive happening October 14th through the 17th in Spanish Fork, Utah. In this safe and supportive space, you'll learn how betrayal impacts your body, discover ways to create safety within, gain tools to manage triggers, and set healthy boundaries. Through experiential activities, somatic interventions, and practical tools, you'll leave with hope, clarity, and the courage to step forward in your healing. Learn more at chooserecoveryservices.com/intensives or click the link in the show notes.
Okay, and now back to the episode. Well, and what you describe is part of the drama triangle because that's the rescuer role, right? So the harm in that is we are continuing patterns.
Yeah.
And that we are part of those continuing patterns. And so, yeah, there is harm in that.
Subconscious or not, I
Mhm.
think the betrayer knows this is what I'm going to get if I go to this place. It's a learned, like you said, it's a learned role, part of the cycle. I know that is exactly what happened in my old pattern. Absolutely knew that I would run in, rescue, and fix. And so it was weaponized.
And what I'll see partners do too, if they recognize this pattern, then they go, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be part of this. They will swing to the far other end of the extreme where they were helping and they were supporting, but through enabling unhealthy ways, they'll swing far to the other side and stonewall and basically go to screw you, forget you. And I'll just like highlight, like we have the two extremes and there is this healthy middle role where you can, because they'll hear this and they'll go, okay, Alana, you're telling me I can't support anymore. Not at all what I'm saying, but we can find ways to offer healthy support that doesn't continue toxic patterns, nor does it diminish, belittle, betray yourself, where you can see the reality and see, yes, here's the pieces I do see, and own the pieces that aren't there. And I think about with that, these partners who really want to, they really want to be helpful. They really do want to see the good. They don't want to be the person who doesn't see and acknowledge the good pieces. Like they really want to be that person because that's in their value system. So you can still do that while honoring reality. You don't have to give up those parts of yourself. You can still,
Boundaries.
yes.
This is where boundaries come in. Boundaries will protect this. It will protect your ability to stay in that good-hearted place. I've mentioned this before. I think I mentioned it. It's probably on my other podcast that I've mentioned this before, but I used to call it heart checks. And
Mhm.
this happened for me after I chose to separate and divorce, but I would still have those moments even after separation and divorce where I would get the pattern would continue. I'd get sucked into his story and feel bad, and that pattern still repeated. I had to at some point stop the cycle, but I noticed it. I would get very confused because I wanted to have the heart. I wanted to have compassion. I wanted to have humanity, for heaven's sake. That was important to me. So I would call them heart checks. And for me, it was a moment to go, okay, I do have a heart. I am kind. I am compassionate. I love this about myself. And this is not a safe conversation to step into because I know it's being weaponized, or because I know this person really doesn't have my best interest, because I know this person is just seeking to control or whatever. And that's where I have to hold my boundary. And I just label it a heart check for me.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm feeling this come up. That is good and beautiful. I don't want to get rid of that. And what is the reality, like you said, of the situation? And then the boundary protects, it allows me to still feel that for him because I want to have humanity. I'm not going to fix, I'm not going to rescue, I'm not going to respond, whatever that is, and hold that. It's a learned skill. It took me a long time to practice that, but that allowed me to still feel like I wasn't giving up this good part of me.
I
Because
love.
to your point, I think that happens often. Well, then I have to give up this part of me, and that feels too hard. I don't want to do that.
Mhm.
Boundaries will protect it.
I love that. I think that is really beautiful. And I'll just say too, when they are doing a lot of work, they're going to group multiple nights a week. They're going to therapy. They have a sponsor. When they can rattle off the list of things that they're doing, if all of those things are only cognitive, meaning all of those things are only talking about or thinking about things versus actually behaviors of changing, of actually like getting into the body and doing some of their own body work to heal their own nervous system, EMDR, brain spotting, ETT, ketamine. I'm trying to think of other body meditation, yoga, things that really like tend to the body. And I say this because I'm thinking of a few different people who have come along my path that they are doing so many things. And I'll say, I'm going to genderize this one, men specifically, because so often men really are taught to stay in their head, to stay very analytical, to shut down emotions. And so they are doing all of this talk therapy. And I've had some who are like, yeah, I've been doing this for like 4 years. It's so much talk, yet their body and their nervous system is still so dysregulated. That's where we get like a massive block. And this is where I do see some of this weaponizing happen. And whether they're intentionally trying to weaponize it or they're just weaponizing it in a way of, look at all I'm doing, and they can rattle it off. If there's not that deeper body work in here, I can see people be stuck in this place for years. And it's really confusing to both sides.
It really is. I want to bring a couple more things that I see get weaponized before we wrap up this particular part, but I also want to validate what you're saying, because it is hands down every time I get, and I know we're genderizing here because typically it is the men, like you said, that are taught to not be in their body and feel their feelings. But when I have someone come through and they do a brain spot session or they do the Alexander technique with me and we're doing some somatic work, then like their comments after, like, oh, 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 that's what feeling in my body is. And just seeing the connection that they're making for the first time, sometimes in their life, what
Yeah.
it actually means to feel the emotion rather than think the emotion. It really is, there really is a difference. So I'm glad you brought that up. I think this often is a missing piece. Again, I feel like we're going back and forth so much today because we see this get weaponized intentionally and we see this get weaponized unintentionally because there's a lack of education. And I think the biggest piece is that somatic work. It's not encouraged. And unfortunately, there are therapists out there that are not encouraging the somatic work. They just are continuing the talk therapy. So I can see how it's very difficult for couples and even the one who caused the harm to feel like I'm doing all the things and they're just not being educated on the importance of somatic work. So I want to validate that. And I want to validate that I often also see it being intentionally weaponized. And one way that I see this show up also is spiritually, using faith, spirituality, God to weaponize healing. So, for example, one of the most common, well, I feel like I've been forgiven, so you should forgive me. Why haven't you forgiven me? If you would just forgive me. I know God's forgiven me, so you have to. However, that's framed, they are bypassing real repair through that spiritual lens. And it is not okay. It is not real recovery. And I will speak from experience that definitely created a big hiccup for me. I got stuck there with that being weaponized against me. And I will say I weaponized it against myself. I absolutely use spirituality against myself. Why am I not feeling safe? Why am I not feeling this? Why am I not feeling that? I must be, spiritually off or wrong or disconnected from God. I used them all against myself too, but I see it happen from the betrayer to the betrayed. And then just straight up threats. I could go on a whole new tangent with this one, but I'm just going to say, if you are absolutely just being threatened, meaning the betrayer is claiming that if you are fine, if you're not patient with me, if you're not going to wait until I figure this out, then you are going to lose everything. I'm going to take the house. I'm going to take the children. You're going to lose. Claiming that you will lose something, they will take something away because you are not doing something they need you to do in recovery. Straight up threats is weaponization. It's not okay, ever. I know this happens. And I want to call it out and give it a language. If you feel like you can't have a boundary, hold a boundary, get separation because they're threatening that they're going to take something that you love away, that is not okay.
It's interesting because sometimes these first ones that we talked about, there's so much confusion in them because it's this questioning. With the threats, it's more obvious what they're doing, but then there's way more fear attached. And so,
Which is still confusing.
well,
I
exactly.
don't want to lose, so maybe I should just stay.
So just wherever, whatever you're getting, and honestly, I sometimes will say a combination of all of these. Often a combination of, here's a little like, well, I'll never be good enough for you here. And then next week, it's like, well, my therapist says. And then tomorrow, it's like, well, if you leave me, I'm going to do this. Well, you know that if you actually move out, like the kids aren't going to want to be around you. I've heard that one a few times. The kids don't actually like you, right? All of these. And sometimes when they sprinkle them like that too, even that can be more confusing because then your brain takes the one, it's not little, but your brain goes, okay, well, they said this one thing, but then you try to find all of these other things to counter it. Even that little sprinkling of it is just as damaging than when it's spread apart. I see partners almost talk themselves out of it more than when it's this constant barrage of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to talk our next part, I guess part two, on how it impacts the betrayed partner, but just really quickly, because we've talked about weaponizing, and maybe you have some more to add to this, Alana. But I imagine that some of you are going, but why do they do this? Why do they do this? And we've touched a little bit on this, how it can be conscious or subconscious. I think it is important to understand that whether it's unconsciously happening or not, it often is rooted in that deep shame and fear. And
It's often protector parts.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's just feels a lot easier to sound good than to actually face the pain and really change, do what it really takes to change individually. Some might not realize that they're doing it. If their nervous system is still wired for defense and that self protection, then it makes sense why they're going to weaponize some of this work. So when they are feeling cornered or exposed, vulnerable, that default can be, I can't do anything right, or look at all that I'm doing. But I think at its core, it really comes down to that lack of integrity between words and actions. And so we're always looking for that. And if you're living in that disconnect between their lack of integrity of words and actions, then of course it's going to feel confusing. Of course it's going to feel unsafe.
Can I just repeat that? And I'm going to make this so simple. Integrity is when words and actions align, and you will feel that when their words, their actions, and I'm going to even put their heart, when those things are all in alignment, your nervous system will feel that. When they're not, your nervous system is going to feel that too. Now, does that mean there is an instant result of that? Sometimes you'll feel that instantly. Other times, your nervous system has been through so much that they'll take some time and that consistency for that really to sink in. And that's okay too. But
Mhm.
like that, if there's nothing else you take from this episode, integrity, words, actions, and the heart is aligned.
Well, the word performative that you used at the very beginning of the episode is just coming to mind. It's just recovery isn't performative. It's transformational. And that is what we're looking for. So it might still feel like, or sometimes just, can I trust? And we're leaning in, and there's a space, like you were saying, that is normal around not being totally sure about that change. And you've always said this in so many episodes over the years, Alana, like if you take a step back, are you seeing that trajectory moving upwards, even if it goes down a little bit? Are we still making that progress on the way up?
Yeah. And at what level? Because this is where I see some partners get confused of in my 20s, I was a very different woman than I was in my 30s, and now I'm in my 40s and a very different woman. And so there is just natural growth of getting older. And
Mhm.
so I will see even betrayed partners use like over the last 10 years, they will take that natural growth of just getting older and going, oh, well, that must mean they're healing and recovery. And so when I say the up and down and the stepping back, it should be more than just what you would expect someone to change in their 20s versus 30s versus 40s. It like you should be seeing, I hate using the word should, but I'm going to here. Like you really should be seeing growth. Like when I say the ups and downs, like daily, like yes, you may have things that come up, but I want to be seeing behaviors of how they're responding to that looking different and changing. And so even this is one of those that I can almost see weaponized of like, don't you see how much I've grown in the last 5 years? Is that the typical growth that we would expect developmentally in an adult? Or is that the growth we would see of someone who is really doing this daily committed work to healing and recovering and breaking patterns?
Yeah. It's hard to know. I just want to validate. It's hard to know. It makes sense why you would be confused. I'm going to end with what I said in the beginning. Trust your body. Trust and listen to your body because you have the right to be wrong and you have the right to change your mind. That means you listen to your body and you believe it first. And as you do so, and you regulate that and connect to that center part of you, your nervous system, then you can start to see things as they really are. If you need to adjust your boundary because you stepped back a little bit, then you can re-engage as you get more informed and you see that, okay, that was from the past and it isn't happening current, whatever the case may be. But I promise, I promise, I promise, you start by just believing your body first, and then we can adjust.
As you're listening to this, these are one of these episodes where sometimes the reality of what we talk about is so uncomfortable. It just takes me back that there's been different times in my journey when I really slowed down and saw what reality was. It was really uncomfortable. And so I resisted that. I resisted seeing reality. I resisted even listening to a podcast episode like this, because if I really sat with reality, there were pieces there that if I accepted, then I knew deep down I would have to, for me, there would be some action steps I would have to take, whether it be greater boundaries or whether it be stepping back from the relationship. I have a lot of empathy for you as you're listening to this, that there's pieces in here that might have been really hard to hear. That's where I even encourage you to take those parts of you and just give yourself love, give yourself that compassion. And as you commit to seeing reality and commit to living in reality for you, that truly is where your power lies. Reality and living in reality and seeing reality empowers you to take whatever next steps you need to. That will strengthen you and it will strengthen your relationship if your relationship is in a place that it's ready to be strengthened. Reality, I'm trying to remember that quote where it says like mental health is the commitment to reality at all costs.
Yeah.
Yes. And so just be so gentle with yourself. As you're coming into reality, recognize where you're resisting, recognize where the pain points are. And then, just like you said, Amie, 1,000%, listening to your body. And if you don't know how, learning how to listen to your body. Huge hugs to you. Huge hugs to you as you navigate this and as you take care of yourself and you honor your healing. Yeah. There's a big sigh there. I don't know. That'll probably get edited out because we cut out the big gaps. But if it got edited out, just me holding space for you. As always, Amie and I, love to be back together, sending so much love as you do this work. And thank you for being with us this week. And we look forward to seeing you all next week.
Your triggers are not a sign of weakness. They're your nervous system asking for care, and managing those triggers is your job. And it's one way to also take your power back. I've created trauma kits that are designed to help you stay in charge of your healing by giving your body what it needs in the moment. By engaging in your 5 senses, sight, sound, smell, touch, you bring yourself back to the present moment and give your brain a chance to assess reality a little bit more clearly. These kits are something that you can keep in your car, flip in your purse, bring with you to an event that you know might feel activating. Having them ready is a way of telling yourself, I'm prepared and I've got me. To grab a kit already made, ready to go, click on the link in the show notes or go to chooserecovery.com, click under podcast, and you can see the link to purchase your trigger kit. Every time you choose to care for yourself in the moment that you feel triggered, you're teaching your body that you are safe, you are strong, and you are free. This is how you choose recovery, choose healing, and choose you. Take care, everybody.